What is up, nerd friends? Welcome back to the Nerd Bench. Today, we're going to talk about 5 things that you should know about your XR8 Pro G3. This kind of applies to, I guess, a lot of speed controls, but I think that XR8s have been on the rise in popularity. Electric A-scale buggy racing has gotten very popular. Everything's gotten better in electric A-scale racing, so the class has gotten a lot better. So we're going to go over 5 things that everybody who has an XR8 Pro G3 or even the XR8 Pro G2S Plus should know about these. First and foremost, any new speed control that you get, check for a firmware update before you get too far into your installation. The current firmware update for the XR8 Pro G3 is 3.1.04. Even if you just got the speed control fresh out the package, bought it yesterday, check for the update before you go too far into that. A few things changed on that most recent update, mainly being the current protection and the Lipo Protection stuff got adjusted, fixed, tuned up a little bit so everything works a little bit better. Item number 2. Programmers. The XR8 Pro G3 is compatible with the LCD Program Box Pro. This is the one I recommend for almost everybody. It's the best of both worlds. This works standalone. You can just plug this in the speed control, use it in the pits with nothing extra. Or you can use it with the built-in Bluetooth and the app. The HW-Link V2 app allows you to adjust the profile on your phone, basically using an app. So if you like that, this guy does both of them. This is like I said, the LCD Program Box Pro. If all you want to do is use your phone, you get the OTA. This guy is a Bluetooth module. This is not the same as the old Wi-Fi Express. It's called the OTA programmer, and this is the guy that you're going to want to get. If you do have the previous version of the multifunction LCD program box, the one that has the USB Type-C plug on the end, and mostly you can see it has the blue writing. They all have this blue color in the screen, but the one that has the blue writing and that USB Type-C plug, this does support the most recent update for compatibility with all the newer speed controls. So you can update this older version of the box to be compatible as well. You should also know that a programmer is required to make any setting or tuning changes. You do not need it to calibrate the speed control and get it in the car and operate it. It'll work totally fine with the default settings. But if you want to change any of the settings, turn on the reverse, adjust drag brake, stuff like that, a programmer is required. There is no onboard button and light programming. Number 3, this might be maybe one of the more important ones. If you're an A-scale buggy racer, and even if you're doing electric A-scale on-road racing, the big trend that we've been seeing lately that has been causing problems is hard mounting of the speed controls. Folks will E6000 shoe goo, use a strap and a screw and hard mount the speed control into the chassis. And well, frankly, that transfers not only a lot of vibration, but any crashes or landings and stuff like that, all that impact's going to transfer right into the speed control when it's good and hot. Your speed control is kind of the heart and soul of everything. It passes all the power, does all the hard work. So protecting this guy, it's pretty simple. Right away, if you've been in electric A-scale racing for any amount of time, you're going to say, I use that gel tape or the gyro tape that's out there. That is a great step in the right direction. I think for a lot of people, that works great and is ample protection. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a very thick double-sided tape. It looks like a green or a blue gel. They come in different thicknesses. Kyosho sells them. But basically, it's a gyro tape from the hobby segment, and it helps with vibration and impact stuff. What I like to do is actually use normal double-sided tape. This clear Gorilla Glue tape or the 3M tape works really good. You can get that at a hardware store. This is Reef's double-sided tape, Reef Servo. And it's pretty thin. If you peel back here, you can see that's not very thick. But what I do is I'll run a strip diagonally across from corner to corner, and I'll just do like 3 to maybe 5 layers of that tape, stack it up one after another, and that way when the speed control is installed in the car, it should be able to wiggle in all directions, and maybe even like push on it a little bit, and it has some up and down give and side to side, and that's going to keep the speed control alive significantly longer. A lot of the reliability and issues that we run into come from speed controls just suffering really bad impact damage while they're hot. And with that movement, something you have to keep in mind is that you got to give yourself a little wiggle room for your receiver and your switch wires, so that if that, the wires are laid down real tight and they're going to be yanking on those guys, so leave yourself a little bit of wiggle room on those wires so that it can do its job and not damage those wires as well. So soft mounting, I think, is a big deal. And like I said, even in the on-road guys, don't just use one layer of tape, maybe use two, just to give yourself a little bit extra cushion. I mean, some of the pipe or the corner dot hits and stuff like that, the chassis slaps that'll go on in RC car racing, it can be real hard. So when it comes to the soft mounting, I know a lot of folks are like, well, I can't get that tape to work. It doesn't stick to the surface of the speed control. It doesn't stick to the vehicle. The trick is cleaning the surface, obviously. A little Scotch-Brite goes a long way, so you do some denatured alcohol, some electronics cleaner, some brake cleaner, what have you. Clean the chassis, clean the bottom of the speed control. You could scuff this a little bit with some Scotch-Brite if you needed to. And then the big thing I like to do is when I lay the double-sided tape onto the surface here or the surface of the chassis, you hit it with a little, like the shrink wrap machine. You warm up the surface of the tape just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a decent amount though. And then when you go to set everything in there, you want to press and hold it in place and give it a couple minutes of holding it there. That's the best way to make sure that the tape has time to do that initial cure, make sure surfaces are nice and clean, and the temperature does a lot to kind of fast forward that process as well. So little mounting pro tip. All right, item number 4 is the low voltage cutoff. Default settings for the Lipo Protection. If you're using racing situations, a lot of the racers that we encounter, they turn off all the safeties. They turn off the temperature protection for the motor, they turn off the temperature for the protection for the speed control, and they run their Lipo Protection disabled because they would rather ruin a battery pack than possibly lose a race on the last lap, so to speak. The rest of us that, we buy our batteries and stuff like that, we still want to have Lipo Protection. So the speed controls default to auto for Lipo, and that's extremely safe, like safer than it probably should be, because in this regard we would rather have it protect the battery than not. And on top of that, we have to consider that there's HV batteries and then there's non-HV batteries depending on what you're charged to, and that's either HV batteries charged to 4.3 volts per cell, non-HV charges to 4.2 volts per cell. So there are some windows there to mess with, and the auto mode takes all that into account and is very, very safe. So if you're going to go race, you're probably going to get early Lipo Protection, or what I call false Lipo Protection, if you leave it in that auto mode, and even if you bash around at a medium pace, that's going to happen. The Xerun series of speed controls, XR8 Pro G3 included, the Lipo cutoff is the total pack voltage. So you can customize that to your heart's desire. So if you're running a 4-cell pack, you want to have it cut off at 3.2 volts per cell, you will go 3.2 times 4, that's 12, so 12.8 volts. It's easier if you do 3 volts per cell times 4, that's 12 volts, but you get the idea. You have to do it to the actual pack voltage that you want, and that's so you can adjust for if you're doing HV packs or non-HV packs, or how far you want to take your battery. For most of my experience, I do everything at 3 volts per cell if I still want to have some Lipo Protection, because what happens is when the Lipo Protection comes on, you're going to get a warning. The car will slow down first before it cuts the motor off. So the idea is as soon as it starts to feel it slow down, you bring it in, start charging the battery, or at least stop running it, and that's pretty safe. You'll get all of the capacity out of the battery. If you run it till it cuts off, and then you have to sit there and let the fan run and things like that after, you can bring it lower than the cutoff voltage, but most chargers will be able to bring the batteries back from that. So 3 volts per cell is risky, but not too risky. Follow your battery pack manufacturer's recommendations before you listen to anything that the internet has to say. Disclaimer. All right, item number 5. This comes down to some of the tuning features, and it's pretty simple. The XR8 Pro G3 as well as the XR8 Plus G2S, the turbo and the boost are only going to work with Hobbywing A-scale motors. It's a safety protocol that the engineers have had in place for a while, because these speed controls can be pretty lethal with turbo and boost on unknown motors or the wrong size motors. They have been very adamant about this feature kind of being locked into these speed controls, and it's something that a lot of people don't know about, so we like to mention it, that if you're not using a Hobbywing A-scale motor, the normal Xerun G3 or G2 series, any of the Xerun Hobbywing A-scale motors, the turbo and the boost isn't going to work. So it only works with the Xerun A-scale motors. It's the only speed control in the series that's like that. The rest of them all have turbo and boost with any motor, but this particular model, that is unique. So I like to mention that to folks. Well, if you've made it this far, I think you deserve a bonus item. So item number 6 is twofold: calibration and power capacitors. A question I get asked all the time: this thing came with a power cap. Is it required? And my answer is always no, it's not required. But if you have room to run the power capacitor, you should definitely install it and run it. And you want to have that right on the battery leads as close to the speed controller as possible so that it gets the most effectiveness. A power capacitor is most effective close to the leads on the power side of the speed control. But, I mean, it doesn't take up a lot of extra room, and it basically just helps the performance of the speed control. Speed control is going to run cooler. Some people say the brakes work better, but overall drive and brakes are going to be a little bit better with the power cap, because a speed control is always switching, and that very high speed switching and high current flow creates something called a ripple current. And a power capacitor is there to turn that ripple current from what would normally wasted heat buildup into usable energy. So the speed control actually, the ripple current gets stored in the power capacitor, charges and discharges constantly, makes everything run a little bit better. So if you can fit the power cap in there, by all means do it. It can't hurt. It's never going to hurt. And the other one, the bonus item inside of number 6 is calibration. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is the part where the speed control learns the neutral, the full throttle, and your brake output of your radio. A lot of folks overlook that. So I still to this day encounter people that they didn't know that they were supposed to calibrate the speed control. So please, please, please make sure that you calibrate your speed control, and don't be scared to redo it. If anything ever starts to feel weird while you're driving, you'll go to recalibrate your speed control and maybe it won't recalibrate. It's because probably something wore out in the radio's trigger itself, or there's something wonky with the radio, something that we've addressed many times on the podcast that we do about this radio. This is separate from the speed control calibration thing, but there's a setting in a lot of the digital radios that allows you to check throttle output. And the key that you might need to do that is because your speed control won't go through calibration process. So trying to run your speed control through basic calibration is a good way to make sure your throttle output on your radio is still good. Especially A-scale racing is a little dirtier. You're outdoor racing. There's a lot of dust and stuff in the air. The trigger pots in the radios collect that dust, and it can lead to some output issues for your throttle channel. So it's something to keep in mind. If you do have any other questions, comments, or concerns, you can always reach us directly by email, northamerica@hobbywing.com. Do you like podcasts? We do a podcast. We give away free RC stuff each and every episode. All you have to do to find out how to enter to win is listen to an episode. Just look for RC Stuff powered by Hobbywing on your favorite podcast service, or you can get it straight from the source, anchor.fm/Hobbywing. And as always, folks, thanks for watching The Charlie Show right here on the Hobbywing official YouTube channel. We will see you all next time.